Over the last 2 episodes, we've learned how to make a listing, and now let's talk about shipping. If you've already made a few listings and are waiting for some sales to roll in, let's figure out how to ship your products so that you're not panicking last minute. I'm also sharing some of my lesser known shipping tips that I don't see talked about a lot, so if you've already started shipping some things and think you already know kind of what's going on, you might learn something new. If this is the first time you're going to be selling things online, you might be like, wait a minute. Why do we need to know all this? Why can't I just go to the post office and ship it? You certainly can go to the post office and buy postage there, stand in line, and pay way more than you have to. But if you don't want to do that, and trust me, you don't, here's a rundown on how shipping from online works. Step number 1, you need to have a scale to weigh your packages on. It doesn't have to be a shipping scale, it can be one of the kitchen ones as long as it does ounces. And preferably also a label printer. That's assuming that you already have a paper printer. You'll need one or the other. But if you have to choose between a label printer and a shipping scale, if you're on a tight budget, I would go with the scale first. A label printer just saves so much time and looks more professional than printing out a shipping label on a piece of printer paper and laminating it with tape to get it to stick to your package. You can buy printable labels that you can put in a regular office printer. They're a little more expensive and you need to make sure you always have ink. Whereas a shipping label printer does not require ink, it prints thermally instead of with ink. Step number 2 is to make sure that you have all of the shipping settings filled out correctly within your Etsy shop. I show step by step exactly how to do this in episode 7 of this series. I will link to that below and give you the timestamp you need. That is very important. Pause this video if you want to and go check to make sure that your settings are right. That's going to prevent some issues later on. This next part is specific to USPS and shipping from the United States. I can't speak for other countries for obvious reasons. When you sell and ship things through Etsy, they have a deal with USPS. And bigger companies have a similar deal as well. They'll agree to give USPS, or sometimes it's UPS, sometimes it's FedEx, but they'll agree to give them their exclusive business and get bulk discounts in return. But you have to buy the postage online through Etsy to get that discount. You can't walk into the post office and get the discount just because it's an Etsy order. When you buy postage, it's calculated by weight and destination, or how far it's traveling. And then there are different services to choose from that are different prices, and different ones that only apply to specific kinds of packages. And just keep in mind for the rest of the video that if I mention any specific prices, those are accurate, or at least a rough estimate for the time that I am filming this in May of 2023. So they may be outdated if you're watching this a bit after that, because they typically will change their prices at least once, if not twice a year. And make sure that you are staying informed on those changes throughout the lifetime of your venture into selling things online. In the last episode, we went over the listings page and how that should look when you're making a listing for the shipping section toward the bottom. Now I'm going to go more in detail about the different shipping services and what those are. The first one on the list is priority. This is generally for packages that are over a pound, or it can be an optional upgrade for your customer if they want their package that's less than a pound to be a little bit faster. You can use any mailer or box for this. If you go to the post office, you may see there are boxes and mailers that are free that say priority mail on them. That is something different that I will discuss later on in the video. The second one on the list there is Priority Mail Express. It's pretty similar to the regular priority mail. You can use any box or mailer again. The main difference is that Priority Mail Express is actually guaranteed by the post office. They have changed. It used to be guaranteed 1 day for everyone, and they've changed it to 1 day if the recipient is in a city, and then 2 days if they are rural. And they will refund the postage price if it is late. It is pretty expensive though, so I wouldn't expect many customers to choose this option, and you don't have to offer it if you don't want to. And then we have first class mail. This is probably the most common one you're going to use if your items are small and light. Again, you can use any mailer or box as long as the entire package weighs less than 16 ounces. For priority and first class, there is a size limit to the boxes, but it's kind of unrealistic that something less than a pound would be huge. And if you ship through Etsy or another service online, the cutoff for first class is 16 ounces, so it cannot exceed 15.99 ounces. But if you go to the post office, the limit is 12 ounces. And sometimes you may find yourself getting a little creative to be under that 15.9 mark. The next three are international options. So your customer can select if you choose to offer them a standard, a priority, or the priority express. You are welcome to ship internationally with these options. However, I have a trick that I use. Well, it's not really a trick, but I don't think that many people know about it yet, that I will explain later on in the video. If you click on advanced options under that, it will give you two more options you can pick from. Media mail is a cheaper option if your products are eligible. As with any of the services, you can select them on an item by item basis if your item meets the qualifications. Just double check with USPS's website to see if your items are classified as media, because some things I would think are media are not, so make sure you check and don't get in trouble for abusing it. And the last option there is parcel select ground. Remember what I said about priority mail? It's basically the same, but a little bit slower and a little bit cheaper. I don't use this very often in lieu of priority because while it's only about $1 or so cheaper, they don't offer as much, like USPS doesn't offer as much insurance through the parcel select as they do with priority. So if something happens to the package, you may not be reimbursed for the full amount. And you can purchase additional insurance for any order through Etsy with the ShipSurance service. But at that point, it's going to cost about the same as priority, and it's just going to be slower for the customer for no reason. So I just go with priority. I don't even select the parcel select ground. But if you want to, go ahead. If you're somewhat familiar with the USPS, like I mentioned before, those boxes that you see in the post office that say priority mail flat rate, stop. Don't do it. While those envelopes and boxes are free, the postage is obviously not free. And most of the time, they are going to cost a lot more than paying for regular priority shipping by weight. And your customers can actually tell that they are not getting a fair price for shipping. For example, they have a flat rate padded envelope that currently costs a little less than $9 to ship anywhere in the US. So if I order one t-shirt from you, I know that it should not cost $9 to ship. That is insane. For one t-shirt, I will guesstimate that it weighs about 6 ounces with the mailer and everything. And that's going to cost about $4.50 to ship. So even if your mailer itself costs $1, which I certainly hope it doesn't, and we'll talk about that later, you're going to save at least $3 or $4 on that shipment by not using the flat rate. I'll link to this article in the description box by Pirate Ship. They explain this in detail and give examples of how the flat rate stuff works and how much your package would have to weigh before it's less expensive to use flat rate than priority or first class. What we've learned so far is basically that shipping is expensive, and Etsy is pushing us to offer the free shipping over $35. You do not have to offer the free shipping guarantee, but I would strongly recommend it because it can help you increase your sales and also increase your average order value, which means more profit per item. If your products are $35 or more already, this is pretty straightforward. You'll just calculate the shipping cost for that item and add it to the price. Remember, like I said in the last video, if you don't know what it's going to cost to ship the item, you can go to the listing page and it'll show you an estimate. Well, it's not really an estimate, it's more like the price if you put in their example cities of how much it's going to cost. So I would use the average price for the shipping cost at least, or you can use the farthest destination that's in the US. So if I'm on the East Coast, I would look at the prices to ship to the West Coast. And don't worry about this making the item cost more or be too expensive, because people know that free shipping isn't free, and they are more likely to buy an item that costs a little bit more but has free shipping versus an item that costs a little bit less where they have to pay for shipping, no matter the price if it's relatively close. Then if your items are less than $35, we need to figure out how many of them a customer would have to order to equal 35. So if it's a $10 item, the customer would have to order 4 of them because they can't order 3.5. Or if it's $5, then they would have to order 7. Basically what we're doing is making a ratio or a proportion of the $35 and using that to figure out the shipping cost. Let's use the $10 item and pretend that 4 of them would ship for about $5. You want to use the exact amount. I'm just guesstimating to make the example a little bit simpler. At this point, you would divide the $5 by 4, and that will give you the total cost to ship each item. 5 divided by 4 is 1.25 or $1.25. Then the same as before, you would account for $1.25 for the shipping cost for that item. The simple way to fix your prices or adjust them for this free shipping would be to just add that shipping cost to your total item price that you already have set. But I would suggest to go back and redo the pricing because, like I showed in detail in the last video, Etsy charges fees on top of everything that the customer pays, not just the item price, but also the shipping and the tax. So if you want it to be as accurate as possible, I would go back and do that and make sure that you are accounting for the fees as well. And remember how I said this can get you more profit per item. If a customer orders multiple of your items, whether it's the same one or different ones, that's better than selling just one to a bunch of different people because you only have to buy one mailer or box for all of those versus several different ones. And there is a lower overall fee with orders of multiples versus multiple orders of just one item. That's mostly because of how they charge the payment fee, where it has the flat 25 cents plus 3% to make the actual transaction with their credit card company. So you'll pay that 25 cents once for an order of multiple items versus if you have a bunch of different people that order one item each, you'll pay the 25 cents each time. So it does add up. And how many times have you added more things to your cart to get free shipping than you wouldn't normally have? I want to mention something in here that was a big fiasco a couple years ago when Etsy started requiring you to have tracking on every order to the US. Because there's a lot of sticker shops or shops that sell like very small flat things that usually just ship with a regular old stamp. But there is a way to buy postage for that kind of envelope on Etsy. So there is a way to mail a letter with tracking. It's not great tracking, but it counts. I will put a demo video up here so you can see what the settings are. I don't know them off the top of my head at the moment, and the prices also may have changed since I checked this last. So again, make sure you check for the current prices. The downside is that it doesn't seem to want to calculate this for you when you make a listing. Like with any other item, it will give you an estimate of what the shipping cost is going to be once you put in the weight and the dimensions, but it doesn't seem to want to do that for envelopes or flats. So an envelope would be something you would mail like a letter or a birthday card or something in, and then a flat is a bigger thing that's a bit thicker than a regular envelope would be. So it will charge you the correct amount when you actually ship the order, but it's not going to charge the customer the correct amount. And I do have a few stickers in my shop, so what I do is just make those listings have free shipping by default, because most of the time if somebody orders them from my shop, they're just adding it to get free shipping. So I'm not actually, most of the time, shipping out an order of just a sticker. But you could also go back into the shipping settings, and at the top of where the shipping section is, you can put in that you want to add fixed prices manually instead of calculating them. So you can make the shipping cost like 55 cents or whatever it is currently. I can't remember what it is. So what about international orders? A lot of people are scared of this, but you don't have to be. It's not complicated, I promise. As long as you've input the weight and dimensions of the item incorrectly, then you shouldn't have any surprises. For any country aside from the UK and the countries that are in the EU, it's essentially the same process as a regular order. It will walk you through everything you need to fill out, and it automatically creates a customs form that is integrated to the label, so you don't need to have a separate customs form or anything. Just pack it up and slap the label on. For orders to the UK or the EU, it will still walk you through everything. If you buy the postage on Etsy, the only thing you have to do is fill out the customs form, and the most difficult part of that is finding the HS or the tariff code. And all that is a multilingual system to help the customs officials know what the item is if they don't speak English. And when you're going through the process on Etsy, it even has links to help articles if you need help. And right away when you see the order in your orders tab, it will show you some numbers and stuff there, but then it says if you're shipping on Etsy, you don't need to do this. So don't worry about that for now, but I will mention that again later on. So I need to take a quick pause from the international stuff for a second because I am about to get to the trick that I use for international shipping, but I need to explain some background first about what this thing is. There are a few alternatives to shipping with Etsy's website. There are like third-party services that you can use. The two biggest that I see and the ones that I currently use and have used for a long time are ShipStation and Pirate Ship. There are more, but I have not used them, so I can't say anything about them. Both of them are going to have the same discounted rates that Etsy offers through USPS. So there is no difference in cost between that and shipping on Etsy directly. At least from my experience, I have heard people say that they cost a little bit different, but I have always paid the same exact amount that the customer paid or that was quoted on Etsy. You cannot do that letter trick like I mentioned earlier with them though. I tried that with ShipStation and it didn't give me a tracking number like Etsy does, so don't do that. The difference in cost is going to be with ShipStation because it is a paid subscription. Right now it's $9 a month for up to 50 shipments and $29 a month for up to 500, and then it goes up from there. The benefit with ShipStation is that if you have multiple places that you sell online, multiple Etsy shops, maybe you do eBay and Amazon, a bunch of other places will integrate with ShipStation. So you can fill your orders in bulk at the same time versus one by one on Etsy or whatever other platforms you use. And since it imports your orders from Etsy, you'll also send the tracking information back to Etsy once you've completed it, so you don't need to go back to Etsy at all. You do everything on ShipStation. They also have more options for shipping carriers, so they integrate with UPS and DHL and a few others that I've honestly never even heard of. So you may want to use ShipStation if you have multiple places that you sell online. Full disclosure, I do have an affiliate reward link for ShipStation. So if you use my link, you can get a free trial and I get a little bit of a commission if you actually sign up for a paid subscription. But I've used it for my business for several years now and it is well worth it for the time I save. And then we have Pirate Ship. It's a similar concept. It will integrate your orders from multiple channels as well. It's more user-friendly, but it doesn't have as many features. And there's no monthly fee to use it. I would describe Pirate Ship as more casual and ShipStation as more businessy. The main reason that I use Pirate Ship is for international orders. Pirate Ship has a feature called Simple Export Rate. This is a much cheaper way to send small packages internationally than going through USPS directly. I'll link below to more detailed information because there are weight and size limits. For a specific example from my shop recently, I just sent out a package that weighed less than half a pound. The standard international price that was given from Etsy and what the customer actually paid was $18.53, but I was able to ship it on Pirate Ship for $11.99. And that is kind of a flat rate sort of system that they have. It's the same price no matter where it's going. It just depends on weight, except to Canada. Canada is a little bit cheaper than everywhere else. Unfortunately though, this does not integrate with Etsy to give the customer the correct price. So what I did to help with this is that I put a note in all of my descriptions that says for international orders, the actual price for shipping may be less than what Etsy quotes, and I will refund any overages. But it does send the tracking information back to Etsy for you if you import the order versus like copy and pasting the address. And you do have to fill out a customs form, but again, it's integrated into the label like with Etsy. So like I said earlier, when you have an order come in, it will show you if it is a country in the UK or the EU. There's a little box in the corner that says, make sure you put this number and the item's value. So you do need those numbers to put into Pirate Ship. So if it's to the UK, it will give you Etsy's VAT number, or if it is in the EU, it'll give you Etsy's IOSS number. And you'll just copy and paste that into Pirate Ship where it asks you to do so. It is required if you're shipping to the EU or the UK to put in the HS or the tariff code. There is a link to look up that number right there on Pirate Ship, so I always use that one and it's fairly easy to use. You just start typing in what the item is and it will give you options, and it's most of the time you're not going to get like what the exact thing is, just kind of get close. And that gets submitted on the shipping label through Pirate Ship, but Etsy advises you to Etsy also advises you to write their VAT or IOSS number on the outside of the package with the item's value or the order value. And don't forget that's in the local currency, which is going to be pounds or euros. Don't put it in dollars. Etsy tells you exactly what that is. All that's doing is making sure that the customer does not have to pay tax on their order again because they already paid it when they paid for the order. Then when you create and print the shipping label on Pirate Ship, it's going to look weird. You're going to be like, why is this going to a sorting facility? I freaked out the first time that I did it as well. But I assume that they're going to put the actual customs label on the package when it gets to said sorting facility. But for these packages, you'll just drop them off at USPS like normal, because the label that it will give you is for USPS. You'll notice it right away. Now let's talk about physical packaging. Probably should have put this at the beginning, but oh well. You may already have your packaging lined up, you know what you're going to use. But let's go over some general do's and don'ts here. It is okay to reuse packaging. My customers really appreciate it, and it's totally fine to do as long as you remove any old labels and that the package is in good condition and it's not like a crushed up box that's not going to make it another trip. That is a good option if you're just getting started and have some excess boxes and things laying around from things that you've ordered. And keep your product in mind when you are packaging, so obviously don't ship candles in just a padded mailer and no extra wrapping, because you're going to end up with an angry customer and also an angry postal worker when that thing explodes. Unless it is absolutely necessary for the integrity and the survival of your product through the postal system, I would try to avoid boxes. Reason being, they cost more to obtain. They also weigh more, which means they're going to cost more to ship than a mailer. Speaking of costing more, don't buy your boxes or mailers at the post office or at an office supply store or Walmart or even the dollar store. Don't. I don't have exact numbers here, but I have bought bulk mailers for my business, and I've also went and bought like one individual one for something personal that I'm shipping that wouldn't fit in one I already have. And the cost difference is astronomical. I'm talking like at least 10 times more to buy a mailer or a box at a store like that versus buying them in bulk online. I personally get all of mine from Eco Enclose. I have a referral link in my description box. There is also Amazon, Uline, U-Pack and Ship, and a whole lot more that I don't even know of because I get all of mine on Eco Enclose. And you should know already at this point, if you're thinking about shipping, how big your items are going to be. So take that into account when you are picking boxes and mailers. Make sure that they are not too big, or even worse, if they're not too small for your products to fit in. Then once you figure out what relative size you need of your mailers or boxes, do a price comparison between the different places that you can get the packaging supplies. What you put inside of the mailer or the box should just be the order or the items that the customer actually ordered, a packing slip, any necessary packing materials like bubble wrap or packing paper. That's it. Keep your freebies and extra things to a minimum. This keeps your costs down and doesn't just send your customer more junk that they have to throw away. I would not neglect your packing slip. For my shop, I use a postcard that is blank on one side, so I've got my business card kind of situation on one side, and then the other side I can print the packing slip on. But if the outside of your package gets damaged, or I've had my shipping label just peel off, the post office knew where to return the order to because my information was still in there. And what do you do with packages that are ready to go? Obviously, USPS goes to the post office. UPS goes to UPS. You can just drop off your packages. Some post offices have an overnight drop box that's big enough for packages. If you go during business hours and there's a long line, sometimes you'll see that other people have thrown their prepaid packages on like the end of the counter. I usually do that, but to make extra sure that you're tracking updates on time and that they actually get scanned in, you'll need to stand in line for them. I've never had a problem just putting them on the counter and leaving because they usually scan them in anyways. But I have heard of some places not scanning them in, or they could forget one on accident. And a post office that I used to use had a bin, like one of those big rolly bins they have. They would set out in the lobby and people would just put their packages in there. But they had to stop doing that because people were stealing the packages. So Don't want that to happen. If you end up with quite a few orders, there is a way to get one barcode for all of them. That's called a scan form. You can do this on Etsy after you ship your orders. The option is right at the top of the orders page. And also right there is where you can schedule a pickup with the USPS. If you can't make it to the post office for whatever reason or just want to save a trip, your mail carrier will pick up the packages on their regular route. The thing is, I have heard from almost everyone I know that uses that, sometimes they don't pick up the packages. So just watch, like don't leave them outside, make sure they actually get picked up. One more thing that is very important, I know a lot of people still do this, don't purposefully mark your orders as complete or print the labels if you're not intending to drop them off like that day or the next business day. Every order that comes in is going to have a ship by date. That's not a suggestion. If you have a few days prior to the last ship by date that Etsy gives you, you can change the date on the shipping label when you go to buy it. So like today's Tuesday, if I was going to ship an order on Thursday and it was still within the time frame that I need to ship it by, I can change the day to Wednesday or Thursday. What that ship by date means is that it better be in the hands of your mail carrier by the end of business on that day. That does not mean print the label by that day and drop it off whenever. And of course, stuff happens. You may end up being a day late for whatever reason. Etsy has been cracking down on this for orders being shipped on time, so make sure you're on it. And that creates a negative experience for the customer as well. If you've marked their order as shipped, they can see that. They get an email when you print the label. And it's frustrating when you're waiting on an order to arrive and it's never moved from pre-shipment to in transit. If you're finding yourself unable to get the orders to the post office on time, then you may want to consider extending your processing time. It does help you as far as getting sales to have a shorter processing time, but it needs to be realistic. But it certainly does not help if you're getting bad reviews for taking too long to ship, and it actually does the opposite of helping when you end up with a big old spank from Etsy for not shipping things on time, because they will shut your shop down for that, for repeatedly shipping things late. Thanks for watching this shipping crash course, and stick around for the next episode of the series. I have all of these videos in a playlist I will link in the description box, and there are lots more videos on my channel about Etsy in general, so I will see you in the next one. Bye.